Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, people. And welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 107. I'm your host, Funk Roberts. I'm a former professional athlete, master metabolic trainer, and I'm known around the world as a guy who helps men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond absolutely transform their bodies, their health, and their life. And we do that through mindset strategies. We do that through recovery tips and tricks. We do that through nutrition. We do that through workouts specifically designed for the aging man, and also through helping you naturally increase testosterone. And this specific podcast and show is specifically for you guys. It's for us. It's for us men who are aging, who want to consume the best information that's focused for us. Because there's a lot of information out there and a lot of great health and fitness information out there, but it's not specified and specific for the man over 40. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. And I cannot wait to jump into this episode. This is going to be a very shorter intro than usual. Maybe it won't be because, listen, there are times in my life that I have awakenings, right? These are like awakening or a spiritual awakening or an awakening is basically just having an awareness. That's really what that is. That's all that is, without having to get into all of the, religious, spiritual, well, it is spiritual awakening, but religious things that kind of block people right off the bat. It is an awakening. Everyone has it and everyone can have it. You just have to be aware when that awareness happens. And, this specific podcast episode, is one of those life-changing episodes. Like it's one, because, throughout our lives, throughout our journey, there are going to be little times throughout that is going to change the way you think, change the way you behave, change your actions, change the trajectory of your life. Whether your trajectory was still going great, sometimes your trajectory in life is going great, and then it just like kicks up a notch, right? That's a life-changing moment, right? Or sometimes, unfortunately, it's here and then boom, this happens. That's also, these are memorable moments. This podcast episode was an awareness moment, a life-changing moment, because as you will see, I didn't really talk too much. I just listened because I felt like Justin, who I have on this, I didn't even say what it is. This is episode 107, and it's the Controllables for men over 40. It's really the Controllables for everybody, but because this show is designed for the man over 40, then that's where I wanted this conversation to occur, and I wanted that topic to be more specified. The thing is, though, what I learned, because I was in learning mode. That's why I wasn't really talking a lot. I was in learning mode. I was in listening mode. I was just kind of like, man, there's incredible information. The way he taught this and the way he's teaching it to you, like, do not sleep on this podcast episode. I'm telling you right now, you're gonna learn things. You're gonna have aha moments. You're gonna have clarity. You're gonna have actionable things to do through the Controllables that Justin will share. It's like, and like I'm already started, right? I'm back to my whoop. And again, this is going to be unbelievable. And so I am excited to have, when I first heard about Justin, I was like, okay, well, he's a Canuck. He's a former, athlete, great trainer, because that's what Justin is. But then when I started to read his highlights, which I'm going to share with you, because Justin's the founder of Own It Coaching, which is a multi 7-figure coaching company. But he's also, used to be a strength and conditioning coach for NHL athletes, but now he coaches NHL athletes. He coaches 400 and 500, executives, people who want that elite performance through his Own It app and his Own It company. But like I said before, he was a high-level professional hockey player. He was a strength and conditioning coach, not only for NHL teams, but also for University of Louisville basketball team, other universities. He's spoken on the TEDx stage. So, right there, he's got something called couplepreneur.com. He's got his own podcast. He's written 3 best-selling Amazon books, and the main thing that really and truly did it for me is the understanding of how HRV is kind of the core and center to our health, right? Because it's he has a holistic approach. And that holistic approach is what he's going to talk about. But that holistic approach involves 8 controllables, these things that we can do every day, things that we can acquire and put into action every day to have the holistic approach. He's going to explain all of that to us. But like I said before, I can't set this up any other way than for you to actually listen to it. I can't set this up any other way. You have to listen. You have to get the notepad out and, just take in everything that Justin is saying. Really listen to what he's saying. Don't just hear it, but listen, and then create a plan to apply, because I'm doing that, and it is going to change. It is going to take my health and my life to another level, to a higher performance level, and it's going to do the same for you. It's going to do the same for you, 100%. So listen up, enjoy. I'm not even going to talk about any, if you're listening, after you listen to this, please share this with somebody, and please give this a 5-star. Hook Justin up, give him a 5-star, give him the love that he deserves, because after you listen to this, you're going to go, all right, I get HRV finally. And 2, I have bite-sized action items that I can start to control my health, control my life, and be in the best health and shape I can be for my family, for my kids, for my wife, for my loved ones, and for myself. Enjoy the podcast. We are live, and welcome to today's show, today's podcast. I'm really excited today because I have a fellow Canuck. Don't generally have fellow Canucks on the podcast, but it's amazing. And this, Justin Roethlingshoefer, yes, thank you. He's actually a former professional athlete, strength and conditioning coach for high professional athletes, Stanley Cup hockey players, etc. And he's the founder of Own It. And one of the things I liked about Justin when I started to watch some of his podcasts, etc., is the fact that he's helping high level people in the world, CEOs, people who own businesses, athletes, etc. But everything that he says resonates across the board. And so first, let's introduce Justin Roethlingshoefer. How are you, brother? And thank you so much for being on this show.
It's a mouthful of a last name, so I always apologize when I come on to these shows, because I'm like, I never give you a real solid first impression of myself, because the first thing you're doing is stumbling over my name. So I have to apologize, but that's something you have to take up with my father.
I apologize too for stumbling and bumbling. I usually am pretty good at that, but I actually hear the name first. But let's get into it, because I want to learn more about you. I think everyone wants to learn more about you. So how did you get to where you are today?
It's a long story,
Justin?
but I'll keep it short. So little boy back in Edmonton, just like every Canadian boy, right, wants to grow up and play in the NHL. And at 12 years old, I was playing with 14, 15-year-olds, and I had a little bit of a tough streak, wasn't playing very well, and I was riding home with my dad, and he looked over and he put his hand on my lap and he said, "Son, talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid." And that really resonated with me. And it was like, wow, what is that form of payment? It could be financial, it could be a scholarship, it could be fulfillment, it could be a great relationship. But consistency is the key. Consistency is the foundation to accomplishing anything great. And so that really lit a fire underneath me. And I started to go, you know what? I can take ownership and learn how to be the most consistent version of me from my habits, behaviors, and lifestyle. So I started wearing heart rate monitors, pulse oximeters, reading medical journals, learning everything I could about nutrition, getting my raw blood analysis from my doctors and just learning it. And the crazy thing is that 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, this stuff made sense to me. Like I could understand what I was looking at. And I started to really know more about this earthly vessel that I was living in. And it really started to produce this journey that I went on from then I came down to the States on a hockey scholarship, got my undergraduate degree in exercise science as well as nutrition. Then I got my master's degree, and then I went on to my postgraduate research in heart rate variability, sleep, and recovery science. And through this time, I started to realize that there was this massive gap between what we were learning and what was actually being done and applied in the real life. And through this whole journey, I started to work at Louisville with the men's and women's basketball program. I went from Louisville to Miami of Ohio, worked with their hockey program. From there, started to do some work with the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Washington Capitals, and finally with the Anaheim Ducks. And in every place that I was, I happened to just be very blessed that I had amazing leaders that kind of were allowing me to really experiment and to be able to put some data to practical application and start to tie habits, behaviors, lifestyle, and see it in a very holistic way. But also, I started to see this massive gap that was existing. Was not only were we using data, like pulling data in from these athletes, but we weren't using it effectively. Everything was a cookie cutter approach. It was, this was your training program, this was your nutrition program, this was your supplement program, this is how you recovered, this was your night program, this was your morning program. And it was never really ever tailored based upon this amazing data we were getting. And when I started to implement it, all of a sudden we started to see recovery times drop. So they were recovering faster. We started to see sickness and illness times drop, meaning we weren't getting sick as often. We saw injury rates drop. And by consequence, we saw winning increase. We saw performance increase. And so it really started to spur this in my mind. And I still remember when I was in Anaheim, another owner of an NHL team said, Justin, what are you doing? Because they've become the least injured and least sick team in the league. Like, what has happened? It's a drastic change. And he goes, can you do that for me? And I was like, sure. He was a 58-year-old man and a big business owner, billionaire. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I took him through the same process, but gave him his own individual outcomes and systems. And he goes, I haven't felt this great since I was 25 years old. And it was a 6-month process to get there. But it spurred this concept inside of me of, hey, this isn't just an athlete problem. This is a human problem. And we can now really help to transform the way that we see health and the way that we ultimately deal with it in the everyday life. And that was really what the mission was. And in 2020, right before COVID, actually, God called me and he just said, hey, I know you've been serving your audience for the last 15 years, but it's time to serve the people that I want you to serve. And those have ultimately been the business owners and entrepreneurs who feel like they've had to give up their health in order to accomplish their mission.
Wow, that's incredible. A few things there to unpack that, the first thing that I heard was at 12 years old, you took it upon yourself to do a lot of the stuff that, not even university people are doing or even professional athletes. I mean, they don't even know what to do in that sense. They're just kind of focusing on their craft. But who taught you? How did you just start to do that? Like who taught you how to like, oh, I'm going to do some research. I'm going to get my blood done. I'm going to get like a 12-year-old kid is not focusing on that. I'm not even just saying a regular 12-year-old kid, because I was a high level athlete at 12 years old, like yourself. So, but even at being a high level athlete at 12 years old, I wasn't thinking about that kind of stuff.
12 was really the first year that I started to really
that?
train. And I was training with a goalie coach by the name of John Stevenson. He's just in like what they call one of the NHL goalie whisperers. And I had started to train with him, but I was in a group that saw his professional guys going right before me. And I saw one guy, he had a heart rate monitor on. And at the time he was playing for the New York Rangers. And he was back for the summer, and I just kind of asked him, I said, hey, like, what is that? And he said, a heart rate monitor. And at 12, again, you have to remember, this is 1998. So it's like a heart rate monitor is used for people who have like major medical issues. And so I was like, that's interesting. And I started to like just start to inquire a little bit more. And then for my birthday, I told my parents I want a heart rate monitor. And they're like, why? What's wrong? Like, what's the matter with you? And I was like, nothing. This is what I want to use it for. And at the time, again, heart rate monitors were like $1,500. It's like they weren't readily available all over the place. And so I was like, this is what I want. I want you guys. So I pooled all the money from like all my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, my parents, and I got a heart rate monitor. And so that was, and to be honest with you, it was just self-taught, where I read the user's manuals. It was a polar heart rate monitor. I read the user's manuals. I started to find out the certain zones. I started to find out what certain data meant. And then I remember I was reading a medical journal, because I was like, where can I find these things? And so I subscribed to a medical journal subscription, and I got these things sent to me. And so they were coming in the mail, and I would remember they would come quarterly, right? And so I still remember, I just knew the first quarter or the first month of every quarter, I was like, yes, getting this journal. And I would read it cover to cover. And I came across this one that talked about heart rate variability and how the equation in which you could find it. And so at the time, that you have to remember, computers are barely out now. This is like the year 2000. My dad was in the computer space. I started to, I went into Excel and created like my own spreadsheet, and I was tracking my own HRV. Like, I was a weird dude. Let's call it that. And so, oh man! Like,
all
I was
performing
obsessed.
people are weird people.
and when I say obsessed, like we can talk about this as a whole nother show, but like the obsession threw me down a very dark road. But it was also necessary for me to ultimately learn this. And I'm a believer, and I know that God had a purpose for why I was so obsessed and why I had to go down that road and experience that. But and ultimately use it for good. But the obsession that was created there and the learning that happened, it's the Mamba mentality, right? Of Kobe Bryant. If I can get one more minute of practice in over anybody else over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you just can't make that up. And that's kind of how this happened for me in the health and wellness space without even knowing it, but just this massive love and passion for being able to figure out more about my body and understand it in a deeper level, and then be able to apply practical applications, behavior changes, habit adjustments, and lifestyle movements that I needed to make that were based on what my body was communicating to me.
And so after you played in the
played
NHL,
in college,
right?
and then
you played in the
I
system?
was
Did you
a
play in the
practice
system?
goalie in the American Hockey League for a little while, and then decided that, you know what, I need to get my life in order, and went back and got my master's degree and kind of continued on.
Okay, so then you get the master's, and then you shift back into strength and conditioning and everything that you've learned, everything that you've applied, because I like the fact that you applied, you learned it, you kind of figured it out on yourself, and what was that kind of like, okay, I've figured everything out. I've learned a lot from school. I've learned a lot from actual practical, testing and failure and also success, etc. What was that kind of ignition for you to go, okay,
I was always passionate about it. And back when I was
other
18, right before I came to the United States, I had this trainer out in Cornwall, Ontario, where I was playing junior hockey, Jeff Gibbs. And we were using all of this information and all this data and training. He was very cutting edge and like trying a lot of things. Being in Toronto, I don't know if you're a hockey follower, but I was working very closely with Jesse Winchester one summer, played for the Ottawa Senators. And as we were kind of going through a lot of this new training modalities, I just fell in love with it. And I saw the development of my body. I saw the development of how we were able to change something and how it ultimately, and he started to use a lot of like different mindset techniques, breath work, and a lot of these different things that like was not cool, was not like the mainstream back in like 2006, 2007. And all of a sudden I was like, man, there's something here. Like I have a big passion for this. Like I could see myself doing this. And that's what led me to go and get my undergraduate degrees. And as I tell that story because when I decided to come back and get my master's degree, I had gotten connected with a lady by the name of Tina Murray. And Tina was the director of sports performance at the University of Louisville. And her uncles were coaches and GMs in the National Hockey League, one for the Buffalo Sabres, the other for the Ottawa Senators. And so Brian Murray. And as I was in that space, she brought me in and really kind of groomed me and taught me everything that I needed to know to harness all this raw information and bring it into something that was purposeful and her system that she was operating in. But what she also did was she gave me the freedom to be my own person and make my own choices and to bring my creativity, my understanding and treat me like a real person. I don't know how else to say that, but like gave me the autonomy to bring things to her that I could go and put into practice and to try things. And like, we're talking about a major Division I basketball program that like the men's program won the national championship that next year. The women's program lost in the final to in the final to UConn. And like we were using heart rate variability, we were using creating practice plans based off of heart rate and heart rate zones. We were looking at deep integrated data sets and the habits and behaviors and lifestyle changes that were needed to be adjusted and made in these athletes and empowering them that way. And I just found such a deep love for it. And that was really the first time I was able to get my feet wet. And during that same time, again, you talk about this obsession, it didn't go away. I went and while I was getting my master's degree, I enrolled to get my massage therapy license. And so I went and got my massage therapy license, understanding the spiritual side of like the body and how it works and this connectedness and this oneness. And then from there, as I left Louisville, I went to Miami of Ohio and worked with their hockey program. And that was the first moment that all of a sudden I showed up on campus and I walk into the rink, which is my facility, and I'm getting to build a facility from the ground up. And so when Rico Blasi hired me, he was at Miami for about 18 years as the head coach, a lot of success. When he brought me in, it was an opportunity to build something that hadn't existed before. They had just done a massive, like $5 million reno on the rink. It was gorgeous, but it also came with a brand new performance facility that I was able to develop from the ground up. And so bringing in the latest technologies, being kind of like that Jeff Gibbs of the training facility in his home that he trained me out of, now being able to build it in for an actual program. And same things. We started to see over 3 years, we saw about 15 guys go to the National Hockey League, and just massive development and massive education and massive learning, that taking this raw talent and turning it into something spectacular. But it really had nothing to do about what we did from an athletic side. It had everything to do from a health side and teaching them how to look after themselves and curating it to understand the language of their body. And I come back to this concept of holistically integrated health and performance, or health and wellness. And if you break it all down, the definition of holistic means all or entire. And the definition of integrated means to make whole or bring together. And then the definition of health is your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional conditions. And that really started to like weigh on me and like wake me up, because you had all of these sports performance facilities out there. You have all these RDs out there. You have all of these functional medicine docs that say, hey, I'm holistic and integrated in my approach. But yet they only look at maybe the mental side of things, or they only look at the physical side of things, or they only look at the spiritual side of things. They haven't brought it all together. And the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional conditions have to be made whole. They have to be brought together in order to be holistic and integrated. And then I had a mic drop moment where I was doing a breathwork series, and one of the facilitators, his name was Rob Starbuck, said, the definition of healing is to make whole. And I was like, wow, holistic and integrated has the same definition as healing, but yet that's why our health is disintegrating. That's why our health is falling apart, is because we think we're doing something that's helping, but we're only looking at 25% of the equation. We're not bringing it all together and understanding what's happening in this earthly being. We don't know what's occurring mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, but we know that we've got the physical side totally dialed up. And I'm seeing all of this depression on the rise and anxiety on the rise, and these autoimmune disorders and these chronic illnesses just coming as a massive rise. And our bodies can't handle it. And so in 2021, when we created Own It, that was really the premise behind it, was stepping back and taking and learning and an understanding that heart rate variability is at its core, the definition of heart rate variability is a language that's communicating to us how our body's handling stress and strain. Our body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional stress. So if we now have a metric to understand how our body's dealing with it, it allows us to begin to bring in this full understanding of how our body is ultimately handling these things. And because we now have a metric to learn and understand this, the response of the body from a chronically stressed state is to create chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation leads to chronic symptoms, and oftentimes those symptoms, be it brain fog, be it lack of energy, be it fatigue, be it insomnia, be it overwhelm, be it burnout, be it weight gain, whatever it might be, is oftentimes something that the world has told us is normal. Oh, it's normal to be fatigued when you're a father of 3. Oh, it's normal to be fatigued when you're a spouse. It's normal to be fatigued when you're a business owner. It's normal to gain a little bit of weight when you're traveling 140 days a year. But when you come back to it, it's a lie. And these chronic symptoms are what's leading to chronic illness. And the chronic illness is ultimately causing 71% of deaths in the United States. And that's where we've been succumbed to, is this journey that we've been just dropped into the space of mediocrity because we've disintegrated the mental, the physical, the spiritual, emotional experience condition that we're living in here on earth. And if we can't harness it back together, we're going to continue to see the disintegration of our health.
Yeah, I couldn't say that better myself. I've been preaching that for years. So I love that it's coming from your mouth. But first, I love the fact that you are an innovator. Like, you are always in that innovation lane, like when you were 12, that was innovative. Like, not like you said, people were not using heart rate monitors the way you started to use it. And then when you were working with that woman who was innovative, with the hockey coach in Cornwall, that was innovative. Like, cause I know that I'm much older, but I still know that in 1998 or around that time, or even further in the 2000s, strength and conditioning was still a little, like Gary Roberts was the only person I know that was doing strength and conditioning for hockey players and everyone else after he retired. And then, again, innovation with the woman you worked with, and then now bringing everything together under, that holistic premise. Now, the problem is there's not enough of you. There's not enough at the moment, because you said something that intrigued me. You're like, well, they only know this and they only know that and they only know this and they only know that. But the only reason why they only know this and they only know that is because they've only been taught this, that. They haven't been taught this holistic. They haven't been taught it. It can be very overwhelming for people. You're a different breed, like just from you saying that while I was at university, I also got my certification. That's different breed people. Not many people in the world like that. And so for you, it's easier than the regular person to understand that the holistic, and understanding that, okay, we got to bring this together. We got to bring this. We got to bring this. We got to bring this and put it all together. Why aren't people doing it? Why aren't people doing it? Well, we know why, because A, there's not enough people like you. B, we're not taught as professionals to do that, right? We're not taught in our certifications or in university that, hey guys, this is actually what we should be teaching, because that's what's going to give you that healing. And then of course the media doesn't help as well, and pharma, et cetera. So I love it. I think I love it. And I think I love the fact that, I know that HRV is key. Right. I mean, I can just sideswipe the 8 controllables and get into the HRV thing, because I think that's important, because here's the other thing with HRV. People don't know how to read it. Right. There hasn't been, until now. I think Whoop is finally, like, Joel Jamieson was someone that Joel Jamieson I've followed for years. He's in the MMA space. He's the strength and conditioning coach for many people, including Demetrius Johnson. And even 8 years ago, he was talking about HRV and how the reason why Demetrius is in such great shape and he can train long and blah 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 is because when his HRV is low, we don't train hard. But it's difficult to figure that out and know what that number should be, because is there anything right now? I mean, Whoop is better than it was before. I'll tell you that now. It's better than it was before, but I know that it's not. I was just going to say,
I think the big thing.
How do we?
Well, first off, I'll come back and I'll say I agree with you 100% that HRV is the most misunderstood, misused, mismanaged metric in the health and fitness space today. Because what did they do? It's hot. It's a hot topic. It's something that's new. It's innovative. Bro, I've been using HRV since 2002. It's not new. It's not innovative. It's just the next thing. And if you don't know how to use it, you're just utilizing it as another drug, as another excuse, as another a cop-out metric to be able to say, oh, I'm not going to work out today, or, oh, no, I'm going to use this. Like, we went into about a year ago, we went into an NHL team and started consulting with them. And they were pulling heart rate variability metrics after a game to see how hard the game was on that athlete. Well, you can't use that. It's garbage data. You can't apply HRV from a game to see how they were recovering afterwards. It just doesn't work that way. It's not the same metric as just tracking heart rate and when you're actually recovered versus when you're not. It doesn't work that way. You cannot utilize it in that same sentiment, because HRV is a holistic metric. It's looking at what happened throughout the entire day, how your body has reacted to the stress and strain that it's been placed on for the last 24 to 48 hours. And so how you have to actually track HRV is during your sleep stage, during a very passive moment where it's continuous and you don't have any other strains or any other impacts throughout that could throw you off. And the best way to do that is during your sleep stages. So going back to your comment on Whoop and Aura actually do a great job in pulling this passively when you're sleeping during that last sleep stage. However, what these wearable devices have done is they've just created more confusion and more fear, because ultimately at the end of the day, they all need to have their own algorithms. They all need to have their own way of showing this, their own proprietary blend. And so you see it in recovery scores, regeneration scores, readiness scores. Like, what the heck is a readiness score? What's a recovery score? Like, what does that even mean? And they're pulling all of this data in and creating this really cool metric, but it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't give you any action steps. It doesn't give you the so what to what's actually happening. I don't need a wearable device to tell me that I slept 5 hours. I don't need a wearable device to tell me that I woke up fatigued today. I know that. Why did I wake up fatigued, and what do I do about it? That's what I want to know. And so if we can get rid of, and this is what I teach everybody who we work with, forget about the readiness scores, forget about the recovery scores, forget about the sleep scores, forget about the regeneration scores, and look just at HRV. Whether you have an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, a Polar, a Garmin, a Oura, a Whoop, you can find the HRV metric. And if you start to be able to look at it, and when it's high, what did you do the day before? And when it's low, what did you do the day before? And tie it back to habits, behaviors, and lifestyles that you had on those days, you can now start to empower yourself to take actions based on these 8 controllables that we can move into, that you now start to be able to put a life by design together rather than a life by default. And you start to have far more many great days and start to see results that you're actually working for, and starting to see the results of what you're ultimately seeking, rather than just continuing to go down the rabbit hole of guessing and testing and not having a real clue or understanding as to why certain things are happening.
Love it. Exactly. So let's get into those 8 controllables, because yes, once we see that score, there's still so many things that we need to control,
absolutely.
things
so
that we can control.
Before I preface
please,
this, what I'll get into is HRV is a metric that goes high and it goes low. And it's very variable. It can move drastically. And there are ranges that you want to be between based upon your ages that are... It's just normative data, but you have to hear this, is everybody's HRV is genetically unique to them. And so we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people. So I say that, but I want to give you some general ranges. So if you're 40 or greater, what we let's say between 45 and 50, you want to see an HRV average of somewhere between 35 and 75. Okay. If you're 40 to 50 years old, we want to see between 35 and 65. If all of a sudden we go from 50 to 60, we want to be from about 30 to 55. And so that is those general ranges. If we're on the lower end of that range or not even on it, great sign that, hey, your body is trying to adapt to stressors and it's overwhelmed chronically, and you're going down that road of chronic symptoms, chronic stress to chronic inflammation to chronic symptoms to chronic illness, and becoming a part of that. One last thing I want to touch on is there's this fake health continuum I talk about often. Yeah. On the left side, we've got death and disease. That's when you have like your diabetes, your cancers, your heart disease, your autoimmune disorders, your chronic illnesses. The window has kind of shut. We're in an issue. You're probably in the system.
Killers.
On the far right side, we've got true health. And we know what true health looks like. We're vibrant. We wake up in the morning full of energy to go and do everything that we have on our list throughout the day. We come home, we have energy to take our kids to all the sports and engage with them as father figures. And we can spend time with our spouse and have just fully close, engaged time. And then when we put our head on our pillow, we sleep deeply and we wake up and we do it all again the next day. We know what that looks like. But then there's this space in the middle that I call fake health, which is disease-free, but symptom-full. And that's what I was talking about, where it's like the headaches, the insomnia, the weight gain, the bloating, the chronic fatigue issues. And these are the things that we've just ignored. But it's a symptom that our body isn't adapting well to something. And it's that fourth stage from when chronic stress becomes chronic inflammation, becomes chronic symptoms. And the longer that we spend time in that fake health space, the smaller the window becomes to put treatment in place, to put proactive activities in place, to all of a sudden where the window closes and it becomes, hey, it's time for treatment, because we've now fallen into the chronic illness space. And so if you are one of those people that's like, man, I've got these symptoms, like I know, and I've been covering up for years, realize that that's not normal. Realize that you are in that fake health continuum and that you are along that road somewhere, but it's not too late to start and it's not too late to move into it. And HRV becomes that KPI, that metric to help us know where we are and where we need to go. I often tell this other story where I'm from Edmonton, home in one of the biggest malls in the world. And when I drove up to the mall, I hadn't been back in about 16 years. I parked outside the water park. Okay. They have a water park. They have Galaxyland. They have underwater submarines. They have inside go-karts. Like, it's wild. Parked outside the water park, a big green sign. It says D3 on it. I walked in, I did my shopping, was in there for about 2.5 hours, went up the escalator, down the escalator, left and right into all 47 phases. And on my way out, I'm like, okay, green sign, D3 water park. I knew where I was going, but I was like, man, I don't know how to get there. I was lost. I was taking twists and turns. I was taking the escalators up and trying to track my steps, trying to figure out, hey, I've seen this place before, but I don't remember where I'm going. And I started to ask people. I was like, hey, does anybody know how to get, like, ask this one lady, do you know how to get to the water park? I parked at D3, big green sign. She's like, oh yeah, go up the escalator, take a right and take another right. So I followed the directions, couldn't find it, got lost. And I come across a directory. And on the directory, I look and I'm like, oh, D3, water park, green sign, there it is. But what was the next most important thing that I saw? The big red dot that said, you are here.
Where you are now.
And as soon as I saw that red dot, I was like, oh, dummy.
Here, exactly.
I needed to go up one more floor on the escalator, take a right and a right. And that's what got me there. And it was really simple. It was easy. And that's just like our health, is we know where we want to go. We know we want to be in true health. We know we want to feel this way, but we don't know how to get there. And we ask all of these random people and they'll give us all of these suggestions. Oh, you got to cold plunge. Oh, you got to use high intensity interval training. Oh, you got to intermittent fast. Oh, you got to meditate. Oh, you got to do breath work. Oh, you got to sit under the stars and count them for 50 nights a year. It's like, but bro, like, none of this stuff's working. And I still have these symptoms. It's because we don't know where we are. And HRV becomes that KPI that tells us exactly where we are any given day. And the 8 controllables become our instructions or our guidance as to what we need to do in order to get us here.
Okay, so let's break down that blueprint. Let's break down the 8 controllables into a nice little blueprint to give people some actionable items.
Get a wearable device, find your HRV, understand what's going on. The 8 controllables, there's nothing sexy about them, but we're going to go through what they are. You've got nutrition, you've got exercise, you've got hydration, you've got sleep, you've got environment, you've got mindset, you've got self-care, and you've got immune function. And so I want to go through these for you and kind of give you a little bit of an understanding as to, okay, when we look at this, what action steps do I now need to take in and amongst each one of these so that I can have a baseline habit structure that will now empower me to be able to really lean into what's purposeful and actionable so that I can have a really strong understanding of what am I doing and what am I doing when. Now, when we think about this, I don't want you to go and start grabbing all of these controllables at once. What I want you to do is I want you to focus on maybe 1 or 2 and be like, you know what, this is something that I really need to address. And so let's start with sleep. Sleep is something that has a big impact on heart rate variability, a big impact on our stress load and how we handle it. And I've got a baseline habit structure of really 3 things. 1, a consistent sleep and wake time within about 30 minutes of one another. And then we've got a 3-2-1 rule. So 3 hours before bed, no food, 2 hours before bed, no work, and 1 hour before bed, no screens. So there's 400 times more melatonin produced in the gut than is produced by the pineal gland of the brain. And the moment that we take in food, we actually start shunting the ability to produce melatonin and put it out into the body. Well, if melatonin is low, that means cortisol still has to be high, meaning that we're not going to get into deep stages of sleep. We're not going to be able to fall asleep right away. We're not going to wake rested, even if we're getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep. So if we can stop eating 3 hours before bed, stop doing work. So anything that's cognitive, stop sending emails, stop text messaging, figuring out your schedule for the next day, 2 hours before bed. And stop blue light 1 hour before bed and enter into some type of parasympathetic activity, it's going to really help us get into a deeper stage of sleep. And we can start to build a lot of these structures and routines around that. Then we go into nutrition. And again, really simple. But 3 hours after waking up, we have our first meal. What have we just done? We've created a circadian rhythm intermittent fast. That means ultimately, if we're sleeping for 7-8 hours a night and stop eating 3 hours before we go to bed and eating 3 hours after we wake up, we've automatically put ourselves into a 14-10 fast. And we're not starving ourselves. We're not pushing ourselves outside of any boundaries, but rather we've created something that our body is accustomed to and something that's really going to serve it in a big, big way. So eating 3 hours after we wake up, we're going to have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're going to have 2 pieces of fruit a day. We're going to have 1 big salad with a protein source for either lunch or dinner. And then we're going to have 0 portion sizes greater than 1 at every single meal, meaning 1 portion of protein, 1 portion of vegetable, 1 portion of fat, and 1 portion of carbohydrate. And that becomes that 3-2-1-0 framework for nutrition. Now, I'll pause here because if we were to take both of those and start to say, okay, Justin, I did my 3-2-1-0 rule for nutrition. I did my 3-2-1-0 rule for sleep. Look at what it's done to my HRV. I've been really, really intentional over the last 2 weeks with each of these. And I've started to see this increase. But I've had 2 days where I had a dip. Awesome. I love this. Why? Because on that day that you had the dip, I want you to think back to the previous day as to what happened. Did you travel? Did you have a really stressful day where you were on back-to-back Zoom calls? Did you get in a massive fight with your spouse? Were you in an argument with your kids? Did one of your kids call you and say that they ran out of money and you have to all of a sudden wire them $5,000 overnight that you're like, man, this is like stressful? What happened? Because remember, our body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional stress. And I'll say all of that because that is how you start to live intentionally. That is how you start to put all of this together. That is how you start to tell stories that matter so that you can use this in a really purposeful and powerful way to empower you on what to do next. And so when we come back at that, and interrupt me at any point in time, because I'm just going to keep ripping through these.
No, I listen, there's no need. I mean, you're doing a fantastic job. Everyone's listening and learning and writing.
So controllable three I'll go to is into
going.
SelfCare. And SelfCare is a unique one because when I talk about the definition of SelfCare, I say this is something that you only do for you. It's not done for anybody else. It's not coaching your kid's soccer team. It's not taking your dog for a walk. It's not going on a date night with your spouse. It's what do you do for only you. And the habit becomes 30 minutes of self-care a day. And so I gave that example of somebody who is in back-to-back Zoom calls or in meetings or all of these things going on and serving everybody, but yet they haven't taken a moment to serve themselves. They haven't taken a moment to replenish themselves. And I'll tell 2 quick stories here. There was a meme that came out, and maybe you guys have seen it. It's like a big man and then a little boy, and the man is taking a puzzle piece out of himself and giving it to the little boy, completing him. And it said the most selfless man in the world. And I kind of blew up social media for a day when I said, actually, no, that's the most selfish person around. And everyone was like, how can you say that? Like, what do you mean? You're just, you're a curmudgeon. Like, what's happening? And I was, yeah, it's a great word, curmudgeon. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I explained myself. I was like, if that man literally took 30 minutes just to pour back into himself and complete himself, he could serve so many more people. Because at this way, he's serving everybody else. He's giving pieces of himself to everybody else. But guess what? That man's going to go home at night and he's going to have nothing left for his own kids. He's going to have nothing left for his own spouse. He's going to have nothing left for somebody who really, really needs him in the moment. And he's going to be like, man, I've got nothing left. Or all of a sudden, he's going to serve and do this and pour into people for so long. And his last moment to pour into somebody is going to come 20 years too soon of what it should have been if he just took a little moment to alleviate himself of stress and give back to himself and not to have resentment, not to have this built up anger over just serving and not getting anything back. But rather, if you're able to set boundaries and give yourself a moment to pour back into you, it changes the game. My second story, I was working with New York Times bestselling author. He'd written about 8 of them, and he was working on his 9th, and he had a 7-figure advance. And he called me and he said, you know what, Justin, like, I'm really struggling. I have to my deadline for my book's in 5 weeks, and I'm on chapter 3. Like, I can't get past it. I'm blocked. And I said, let's call him Tim. I said, Tim, what was the last thing that you did for yourself? Like, what do you love to just do for yourself? And he kind of laughed. He goes, bro, with 5 kids and a wife and everything going on, like, I don't have any time. I was like, okay, so what do you do for yourself? He's like, man, I love to water ski. And he lives on a lake with a boat and a neighbor kid that loves to drive a boat. And I said, well, this is pretty easy. When's the last time you water skied? He goes, like 3 years ago. I was like, okay, this week and for the next 4 weeks, I want you to water ski an hour a day, 4 days a week. He's like, there's no way. I was like, either you're going to do it or I'm done working with you, because you just have to kind of lean in. And he goes, okay. So he water skis once, twice, 3 times, and he texts me. He goes, this is such a waste of time. I should be writing, blah, blah, blah. I said, just lean into it. Second week came. He went once, he went twice. And on Thursday, I get a phone call. And it's Tim, and he pick it up, and I'm expecting just to get reamed because he's like 2 weeks deep. He's like no further along. And I hear him on the other end. He's like, Justin. And I hear him and he kind of takes like, I think he's crying. And he goes, I've been out on the water for 3 hours. And I told him just to stop. And we've been sitting out here. And I finished my book on my water ski this morning. And it was amazing just to hear this, because it comes back to being able to fill yourself up and give yourself space to be able to be creative again, to be able to tap into that level of clarity that is existing in each and every person and drop the stress level. Give yourself a blow. Allow yourself to get some capacity back so that you can serve. And so often when we look at our heart rate variability, it's depleted and it's depressed simply because we haven't given ourselves a moment to recover. And that 30 minutes of self-care a day becomes this literal, like this sacred time that we can just like lean into. And I'll tell another story when we get to kind of the mindset space, but self-care becomes so important. And that baseline habit is 30 minutes a day.
So the reason why if you're listening to this, you haven't heard me say anything, and for you, Justin, is because I say a lot of this stuff. And, me just coming in and going, yeah, I say this is for me. And that's why I said thank you, because a lot of things you're saying are things I share with my brothers. So like I said, I just want to sit back and, this is incredible. This is absolutely incredible, because on one end, I'm telling, I'm saying some of this stuff, but the action that you're giving for each controllable is undeniable. Like there's no confusion. There's no confusion. Like, okay, this, like, it's not, there's no, in between. It's like, this is what you do and start doing it. So yeah.
No, I appreciate you. And I want to preface this again.
What's going on
you
here.
don't take on every controllable all at once, and you don't take on every habit all at once. This is an iterative process. This is something that over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you can really transform yourself and add a new controllable every 3 to 4 weeks, and add a new habit every 3 to 4 weeks. And all of a sudden in 5, 6 months, you've added 10, 12, 14 habits to your routines, or exchange them and remove them in a really big way. And at the very end, I'll talk to you a little bit about the acronym I have for PREPARE, which is all about preparing yourself for what's already been prepared for you. So we'll go on to controllable 4, which is really environment. And when we think about your environment, I think we often forget that our environment is truly something that our body has to adapt and adjust to every single time. And so the first one is sunlight exposure within the first 10 minutes of waking up. What that does is it signals cortisol, the photons that hit your photoreceptors that tell you, hey, it's time to wake up. It opens up and clears the adenosine from your brain receptors, which is allowing you to truly feel energized. And then seeing the sun set first thing at night. And so I want to be clear on this. You don't have to wake up and see the sun rise. You don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. But when you wake up, see the sun rising. Get it before it's up in the peak air, and like get exposed to it within the first 10 minutes of waking up. And then that's the same thing. You don't have to see the sun actually set and drop below the sunset, but see it setting, whatever time zone that you're in, and make that a habit and a priority, because it resets your circadian rhythm to go off of these 12-hour windows that really hormonally balance you in a much better way, which again comes back to your stressors. The other thing I want you to start to think about it is the five senses. What sounds are you exposed to throughout the day? Do you have a construction working site outside your office and it's going bang, 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 bang all day? Or are you having some type of loud music that you're exposed to in your car? What does it mean to maybe just have some quiet music, or a lullaby type music, or just no music at all and just silence? What's the smells like? Is it old, musty, and dusty, or do you have aromatherapy going on throughout your environment that you're purposefully actioning on? What are the what is the taste that you're putting in your mouth throughout the day? Or is it artificial from these sprays coming in, or are you actually giving yourself high quality candles, or tasting little citrus fruits throughout the day that are going to, again, enliven the senses in which you're operating in? And so these are the things that we come to in the environment space that we really want to make sure that we're purposeful and intentional about. And coming back to like the temperature, what's the temperature of your room? Are you sleeping in 70 degrees, or are you sleeping in 65 degrees? What's the posture that you're sitting in? Who are the people around you? Who are you being exposed to? Are they supportive? Are you taking time to connect with people? Do you have a date night once a week? Do you have friend meetups once a week? Do you have these things? And when we think about our environment, it's amazing what happens. Again, I tap all these with stories, because we had this lady that had a decent HRV score. She thought it was awesome, and she just felt some level of stress and couldn't understand why. She had nailed every other controllable over the last year, built them up, and she averaged about 60 on her HRV. And all of a sudden, her sister came to visit her for the first time since COVID, and her HRV jumped to 79. She'd never seen that. It jumped, and we were like, oh, maybe it's just like a misread. 79, 77, 81, 77, 78. And it continued on that space. And we were like, wow. And it caused us to ask the question, when's the last time you've truly connected in person with somebody else that you truly loved? And she was like, man, it's been forever. And so now that became a new habit of hers that she focused on. And her new average is 73. And she's tapping into new levels. Like, think about the suppression of stress on your body when you're not leaning into what it's asking you. And that brought awareness to something that wasn't there. You go back to the concept of being in the mall. She was lost, even though she didn't know it. But that brought brought everything to the forefront in a really powerful way. And so that's something that I want you to think about in terms of environment. Next one, movement and exercise. I try to keep this one pretty easy. 30 minutes of intentional exercise every single day. So notice how it's movement and exercise. Why do I combine these together? Because movement is not exercise. I want to be very blunt when I say this. Going for a walk with Fluffy is not exercise. It's movement. It is just simple activity. Watching sending emails on the bike while you pedal is not exercise. That's movement. So when we talk about intentional exercise, 30 minutes of intentional exercise every single day, that could be a weight training session. It could be a class. It could be a yoga class. It could be hard intervals on the bike. It could be going for a run. But it's you tapped into you for 30 minutes of intentional exercise every single day. And then the other is move every 90 to 120 minutes. That's where in the middle of your day, go take Fluffy for a 5-minute walk. Go get a glass of water do 5 squats in your living room and walk back into your room. Grab a foam roller and roll out your back and do a couple sun salutations and sit back down. That is, and putting a timer on for every every 90 to 120 minutes. So every hour and a half to 2 hours, just set a little alarm, 3 to 5 minutes. It's not a lot, but notice what it'll do for you. And those are the simple habits of movement and exercise. It's nothing complex and crazy. It's very, very simple, but it's intentional.
I love that you use that word. Intentional is very, very important because, a lot of times in some of my programs, people will go through phase to phase to phase. A phase is 28 days. And they'll just go through the phases and they're kind of just getting through the workout. There's no intention through the workout. So sometimes I see oh man, you've been in this program for 2 years and your body looks exactly the same. Like there's something going on there. Just what is the first thing that you can do? Or let's try to uncover something. And when it's, I brought up the rate of perceived exertion because that's generally an easy way for people because sometimes people think if I'm just doing this for 30 seconds, or they're just trying to knock out the workout. They're just trying to get it done. I got 30 minutes. Let me just quickly get this workout done. That's not intentional. That's just going through the motions. Even if it is a workout, even if it is a metabolic resistance training circuit, if you're not intentional in that circuit, you're not going to get results. If you're not progressively overloading, if you're not tracking, if you're not, seriously going, okay, this is going to be a very difficult workout because I'm trying to increase the weight or increase my speed, or I'm doing an exercise that I haven't really been good at, but I want to master the technique. That's intentional. Just turning on funk and going through the follow alongs and just looking at the clock okay, I got about 10 more minutes left. That's not intentional. That's literally moving, really. I mean, I'll put that into the movement and it shows. And when I brought that up inside my brotherhood, a lot of aha moments like, oh yeah, you know what? I am just going through the motions. I'm not giving it the exertion. And I do feel crappy, not crappy, but I do. Now that you say, 22 years you've been in this program and you still look the same.
That's a good sales pitch, right? Hey, on the 23rd year, it really works.
No matter what. Now, the guys who are you can tell the difference between the guys who are ripped and explosive and in their 70s and 60s and 50s, because those are the ones that are increasing the weight and doing it with intention. But I love that you did say that. That was amazing.
I love it. And then we come to controllable 6, and this is one that a lot of people take for granted, which is hydration. And our body is made 75% of water. And I know you've seen the Gatorade commercials where they talk about, hey, by just having 1% of your dehydration in your body and dropping by 3 pounds, your mental capacity drops, your ability to expel heat drops, your cognitive function is completely disarrayed, your reaction time is dropped. All of those things are real and all those things are true. But let's just go back to how much stress is placed on your body and what it has to go through. Our bodies are amazing adaptation tools. And if all of a sudden it doesn't have something it needs to function, it's not going to have you drop dead and die. It's just going to start to steal from Peter to pay Paul and start to put things into imbalances, which ultimately leads to inflammation, leads to symptoms, leads to illness over the long period of time. But if we are able to take action on these things, it moves us in the right direction. And so with hydration, it's a very easy equation. Half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. Half your body weight in ounces. Now I'm going to challenge you. Look at your HRV when you get half your body weight in ounces of water, and then look at your HRV when you don't hit your half your body weight in ounces of water. I guarantee you it will drop. It's the same thing. Don't drink alcohol and drink alcohol. And I guarantee you, days that you drink alcohol, your HRV will drop. It is so telltale on how impactful these habits actually are on our body. And I think we've just taken them for granted for so long I drink 5 glasses of water a day, I'm good. No, bro, that's 20% of what you should be taking in. You should be taking in 20 glasses of water because you're a 180-pound dude. That's what you should be drinking, is half your body weight in ounces of water. So at 200 pounds, I should be taking in 100 ounces of water. I don't leave anywhere without this water bottle. I know this water bottle is 34 ounces, and I know that I need to drink 3 of them a day. And that's just what I do. And it's a non-negotiable for me. I wake up first thing in the morning, I fill it up, I grab it, I go into the sauna, and that's how I start my day. My sauna outlooks the sunrise, so I've been able to double dip in that category, and away I go. Like, that's literally how you can start to habit stack these things, but making sure that you're getting these things done. So that's number one. And then the other thing I have on there is, this one goes back for a lot of our clients. We do DNA, epigenetics, cellular micronutrient testing to be able to custom supplement and create a little bit more specificity when it comes to nutrition and some of these controllables. But I say we also want to start our morning with 16 ounces of salty water. So whether you're using Element, whether you're using Redmond red salt, whatever it is that you're using, because what sodium, potassium, and magnesium does for us in these electrolyte components is it actually primes our cells to absorb the water. I know there's probably a lot of people out there right now that are like, man, when I take in half my body weight in ounces of water, I try to increase my water intake, I'm peeing all day. And all you're doing is, it's because your cells aren't primed to absorb the water. So you're just actually flushing nutrients and diluting everything that's internally. So a lot of people go, man, I drink so much water, but I feel less healthy. And that's the reason why. So we need to make sure that when we're drinking that way, that we're getting our electrolytes in so that we can actually create a better micronutrient balance internally.
Isn't that funny you just said that? Because not but 3 days ago, my wife, Angela, just ordered Liquid IV, and she's like, yeah, you know what, honey, I got to start having, because she's in menopause right now. So she has all these hot flashes. So she's doing it for the hot flash, but in reality, it's, it's a little bit of both. But that's so funny because the first thing she drinks when she wakes up is Liquid IV, in the water, and just downs, and she feels fantastic.
I want you to
she feels
get
amazing.
her, go onto just Element or Redmond website and get her either one of those and have her try those as well. Because what Liquid IV does have is it's got a lot of artificial sugar in it, which obviously you don't need. But what it also has is it has cyanocobalamin as their B12 substitute. And so for B12, there's 2 different forms of it. There's methylcobalamin and cyanocobalamin. Cyanocobalamin is cheaper. It's a cheaper form of B12, but the cyano component is actually a cyanide molecule. And America is the only place in the world that allows cyanocobalamin to be utilized. And because what the FDA says is if it's in small enough dosages that doesn't create toxicity within 5 uses, it's acceptable. But if you use it every day, it's actually just storing cyanide within our body. And over the course of years, it can start to create cyanide poisoning within us. It's crazy. Like in order for cyanocobalamin to be transported, they have to wear hazmat suits and they have to, it's incredible. But yet we're allowed to put that in our products in which we go. So if you guys are listening to this, be sure to look at any multivitamin, look at any supplement, look at any packages. And if it says B12 on it, look right next to it. It'll say either methylcobalamin or cyanocobalamin. All of your energy drinks, your Celsius, your Red Bulls, all of these, they all are cyanocobalamin packed. So definitely want to create a different choice there when looking at that. But going back to what I was saying is just have her try Element or Redmond and see if that gives her that same effect, because she'll be able to get rid of a lot of the artificial sugars on top of eliminating that artificial B12 cyanocobalamin out of her diet.
When you're saying Redmond, you mean
called
real
Redmond,
salt? Like the
it's
real salt?
It's Redmond salt, and right? It's called Relight.
Yeah.
RELYTE. Yeah. So both of those exist. Relight. Element, LMNT, okay. Or Redmond. So both of those are options. And then the 7th controllable is immune function. And this is, to be honest with you, this is kind of like your HRV secret weapon. And when you lean into this, when you see a 3-day decrease in HRV, what that's telling us is that your body is having a hard time adapting to something, whether it's travel, whether it's a hard workout, whether it's just excessive stress, whether it's whatever it might be, but it's telling us that your immune system is actually suppressed. And so if you think about it, you've got this castle and you've got a moat around it, and you've got all of these little men up in this castle ready to pick off all these bacteria and viruses. But as you increase stress from exercise, from workout, from your business, from your job, from your family, from everything that you're doing, these men are having to go and start healing and suppressing a lot of the stress and helping to recover. And so if you're doing that over a long period of time, inflammation starts to grow. You start to drop your immune function. Some of these men aren't as readily available. And so the bacteria and viruses have an easier time to invade your space. And so it's a really good indicator that, hey, your body's having a hard time adapting. And what I suggest when you see a 3-day decrease in HRV is, number one, there's a great supplement called Phytogen from Thorne. That is a really heavily concentrated form of echinacea and some other botanicals, which is really awesome. Or just 3 doses of vitamin C throughout the day. So 300 milligrams in the morning, 300 at lunch, and 300 at dinner, so that you can actually process all the vitamin C and actually use it, is a great way to create this immune function protocol. And what we've seen in athletics, as well as within our private client base, is that we actually decrease illnesses by up to 70%. And it's been really, really powerful using HRV as that guide. So in a 3-day decrease in HRV, that's when you utilize your custom immune function protocol. And then again, for people within our system, we actually do, like I said, cellular testing to be able to custom formulate these highly protective compounds that are protective for their body based on what we see at the cellular level, and then be able to use that as their immune protocol.
So if you're like in a state that's very stressful, but you're in there for specific reasons. So, I go to university, I have 2 companies, I'm also finishing a book, that's what April looks like. April to me is, I got a business plan that I got to create to present in May. So, and this is Harvard, so it's a little bit higher level. Then I have these 2 businesses still that we're actually in growth mode right now. So testing ads, all of that stuff. Plus I have the brotherhood that, I'm always inside the brotherhood and coaching. And then,
too much.
Can't even remember. But, book. No, my book. Yes. So now my editor just sent me a message and was like, okay, we're about to, get into the editing portion of the book. I need this. So I know that it's going to be a higher stressful time because there's a lot of things happening. Would this be the time? Other people, I'm sure, have these type of times in their lives or in months or weeks or what have you. Yeah. So is this when I would implement that protocol, knowing that my HRV is probably going to be low during these times, because I don't want my body to adapt. I mean, I want my body to be able to handle, but not to adapt. Like, I don't want this to be the norm. I want to be able to perform. Would this be a good time to make sure that this protocol is in,
100%,
as well as,
because remember what I said, it's
doing
a
the best I
3-day
can with these
decrease
other
in a row.
controllables.
So when you see day 1, day 2, day 3, and you've got a drop, and a drop. And so that's telling you that your body's having a hard time adapting to what you're actually being exposed to. And so you're increasing your risk of getting some form of sickness in. And so it's not if you see a drop and then a rise and then a drop and a drop and a rise. It's 3 days in a row you see those drops, boom, that's when you want to start to implement that. Yep. And then we come into the last one, which is mindset and our mindset controllable. And this is where a lot of people confuse mindset with self-care. Self-care is something you do solely for you, something that just fills you back up. When we talk about mindset, this is where you do your breath work, your meditation, your reading, your journaling, these habits that aren't always enjoyable, but it's something that's going to help make you better, something that's going to push you forward, something that's going to, again, create clarity and some level of calmness, but it's sometimes an investment to do it. It doesn't always feel good right from the get-go. And a story I have often with this is, well, first, let me talk about the habit first. So it's exactly what I said. It's a 10-minute activity throughout the day. So it's 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of breath work, 10 minutes of reflection time, 10 minutes of journaling, 10 minutes of an accountability reading, 10 minutes of a coaching call with somebody, 10 minutes of a mental or mindfulness or spiritual practice. It could be 10 minutes of praying, whatever that is for you. That's what I really want to empower you with, to go and lean into, to make sure that, hey, this is something that is purposeful and actionable for me. And away we go. And so another story is, I had this guy who came in, and when we were first working through these controllables, he ultimately had done a great job in implementing a lot of these. And right from day one, he was like, Justin, you will never get me to meditate, like ever, like not a chance, bro. Like I'm going to stay as far away from that mindfulness and mindset controllable as I can. And about 8 months in, this is a hedge fund guy. So he's a big investor, knows all about investment. And about 8 months in, we started to dabble in it a little bit. And he came to me about 3 weeks after. He goes, Justin, I'll tell you what, I don't know what this breath work and meditation stuff is, but bro, I feel great. Talked to him again about 6 months later, and he goes, I'm an investor, and I know how to get ROI on my dollars. And I'm telling you, if somebody told me you could invest 10 minutes a day in breathwork and meditation and get 8 hours of high quality, focused, deep work, I would do that any day of the week. That is a great ROI. And he's like, that's why that time is now sacred to me. And so that's what is available to this. And this is, again, it goes back to these frameworks of how we look at this. And I challenge you, look at when you utilize breathwork or meditation or journaling or some of this time, and when days that you don't. And do you see a change in HRV? Can you tell a story off of HRV? Can it truly help you understand what's happening in a purposeful, actionable way? And that's what these controllables do, is they give you now a target to say, hey, when I go through these actions, what happens to HRV? How does my body respond? Does it respond positively? Does it respond negatively? If it responds negatively, how come? What other factors were implemented in this? What other factors were included in this that caused some of this, and helps empower you to know what to do, not only today, but ultimately moving forward.
This is incredible.
This is just intentional living. What I say, this isn't biohacking, because there's no shortcut here. And it's something that's just creating true sustainability, but this is true physiological change. And this is really understanding within your body and knowing what's happening. And so off of this, and really kind of coming back to this, I want to touch on something I talked about, which was about prepare. And I'm big about preparation. When I'm good friends with John Gordon, and he talks often about choosing your one word for the year. And my one word for the year was prepare. And it was prepare yourself for what has already been prepared for you. We've all been put on this world to be world-class at something, to have a gifting, a calling to lean into. And it's already prepared for us. It's waiting there. The promise exists. But we have to prepare ourselves in order to accomplish that. And I turned prepare into a little bit of an acronym. And so the P stands for pray. Pray for the strength, pray for what it is you want, pray for where you want to go. Replace is R. Replace habits in your life that are holding you back with things that we just talked about. Replace them on a purposeful and intentional way. Expand. So expand your thought process, expand your horizon, expand what you think you should be doing, and expend energy doing them. We've been given energy for a reason. Be able to lean in and take effort and action. It's not just something that happens automatically. It's something that takes expended energy in order to do that. P is for practice. So I need you, when's the first time you did something that you were amazing at it? Probably never. You have to be okay being a beginner. Lean in and practice your practices. Take what you did and be consistent with them. Continue to grow in them. It's not meditation. The first time you do it, so you're not going to get it. The first time you try to do self-care, it's going to feel weird and awkward. The first time that you try to do your night routine, you might not get it right. but practice the practice. And then A is accept the outcome. Accept that it's not going to be great. Accept that it's going to be a work in progress. Accept what the result was, because that's exactly what it was supposed to be. And then R is rest, reassess, and refine. So take a look at how everything turned out. Allow yourself to rest. Give yourself that time to come and see what happened. Reassess how it all ultimately turned out and what you need to drop, what habit you need to replace, what you need to move, and then refine that process. Keep moving, become this fully polished tool that you can be used for what it is that you were meant to be. And then expect is E. Expect that the work you're doing is going to pay off. Expect that the work that you're leading into is you're going to be rewarded for. Expect the results to come, because if you are consistent, your payment will come. If you are focused on what it is that you're preparing for, you will ultimately realize those gifts at the end of the day and ultimately be there in a full level of expectation, because your gift, your calling is somebody else's miracle and they're waiting for it. And it is your responsibility to prepare yourself in order to go and be ready for when that moment comes.
Provide, protect, procreate, gentlemen. That's why we're put on this earth. And in order to do that, you have to be prepared and you have to take heed, follow all of the 8 controllables, and start with your HRV. I'm going to go back to HRV just as we finish off, because I'm going to tie this back to the Whoop or the wearables, because, if all we have is a Whoop or a Apple Watch or, whatever it is that we're using for HRV, can we use those as our kind of like our start point or as our guide? Are they going to be accurate enough? When's the best time to use them? Because I do remember when I started using Joel Jamieson's new wearable, I would get up in the morning as soon as because he said the exact same thing you said. It's got to be first thing in the morning. As soon as you wake up, before you do anything, sit down. Don't even stand up. Put it in, and then it just tracks all that stuff for you. HRV comes up, and now true without any other stress because you just woke up. Truly, what that is, or as accurate as it can be, and then you can start your day. But is that? I mean, how do we use our Whoop? Let's say.
Yeah. So
how
the best
do we
thing.
use the Apple
So here's
Watch
the best thing about all those wearables, and this is why I love it.
Reading.
Is it's pulling HRV passively. You don't even have to do anything. Yeah. So forget the algorithms. Forget everything it's showing you.
Okay.
If you go into the app, if you go into Apple Health. And you go into the little heart metric. Yeah. If you go into browse so you go Apple Health, browse, and then you click on heart, it'll show you heart rate variability for the day, the week, the month, the year. And you can see trends. You can see where you're at. It's pulling it automatically. You probably don't even know. Okay. Go into your Apple Watch, go into your Fitbit or your Garmin or your Polar or your Aura or your Whoop. And they're pulling HRV. It's just hidden. They're going to show you their algorithms and their fancy metrics first. Ignore those. Right. Throw them out the window. Go right to HRV. They all exist. Look at your day. Look at your trend, and attach it to some type of habit and behavior that you're wanting to level up on, which we just outlined. You're going to see a major win here.
That's incredible. Justin, is any final words before these guys can find out where to find you? Because I know that they're going to I want the 8 controllables in a PDF. I want to join this. Give it to me.
That's
okay, great.
Yeah.
I got to rewind this.
You can find me at ownitcoaching.com. You got all the information that you'll ever need there. And just if they're wanting to reach out, there's many different spaces on the website to reach out there. And then secondly is you can find me on Instagram at Justin Roth, ROETH. Very active there, and you'll always get me responding. So I encourage you guys to reach out, and more than happy to help guide you and help you in a multitude of ways. And again, I'll just throw a last one out here. I usually only try to want to put you in one place, but masterinSixminutes.com. You'll basically get that PDF of the 8 controllables and understand what HRV is in a bigger setting, and do it all in about 6 minutes. So master in the number 6 minutes.com, and I can send that over to you, Funk, after we're done here, and put it in the show notes or whatever. But those 3 places.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Justin, man. This has been incredible. It's been a clinic, guys. You just had a clinic in holistic. I did call it biohacking 2.0 because it's not, I know this is not biohacking, but it in the whole scheme of what biohacking is, like, I'm trying to get a shortcut here, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do this, and everyone's all focused over here. The true essence of what biohacking was supposed to do is like anti-aging, having you live longer, etc., is actually over here with the controllables, with the HRV. Once that's really for me the truth when it comes to anti-aging, longevity, all of these things that are extremely important as we live in a society that Jesus, we have so much technology, so much education, we have so much right now in 2023. And the fact that we are the sickest ever is unbelievable. I mean, other than when there's been plagues and stuff, but man, this is not good. This is not good. So we have to take ownership. We have to own it. And let's put these 8 controllables in place. Thank you so much, Justin, man. I love it. You gotta come back on for something else. I don't know. I'll find something, but definitely we'll get you back on.